So we'll be starting the event shortly at 6:15. Everyone is requested to ask the questions at the last because we are going to have a question answer session at the end of the session. These are the ground rules for the session. Please mute yourself. Use chat box for any queries. Our links to the different forms and other things will be given in the chat box itself. Feel free to turn off your video. Please don't spam. Let us know if you are having any issues with the audio or video. If you have got any questions, then just shoot them at the question answer session. Hello everyone. Good evening, all present here. I hope everyone is safe. I'm Rajashri, the host for the event. I welcome each one of you who showed a deep interest in attending the session. Today's session is all about the basics of Git and GitHub, and more importantly, a hands-on workshop will be done on how you can successfully make a pull request, which will count towards Hacktoberfest, and you can get your t-shirt soon. This session is organized by Enigma in collaboration with DSC BCSU team. Now, I welcome our beloved senior, Vartika Singh, CSC final year, who is the speaker for this evening. She will be briefing you about the basics of Git and GitHub. So, I request her to start with the presentation. Over to you, Dee.
Okay, it seems like Nidhi is facing some network issues. So in the meanwhile, why don't we just interact for a while, like until he comes back? How many of you are like acquainted with the Git workflow? Let me know in the chat, please. Like, have you contributed to organizations before? Or this is the first time you are trying to learn? Like, your opinion in the chat. Okay, so Ashutosh says that he works only on his own projects. Comfortable with Git and GitHub. Okay, very good, Ashutosh. Can go on.
Okay, Shivam, please here.
Okay. So, can we start
Yes,
the session?
Sure. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
There is some internet issue here. So,
Let's continue. Over
okay,
to you.
Rajeshri, I would request you to share the slide. So I'll be explaining and we'll follow your slide. Okay. I'll ask you when to change the slide.
Okay, sure.
Okay. First of all, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I missed the time I had to greet you all now. Okay, so I think Rajeshri has told you about the agenda for today evening. So I'll just repeat it once again. Of Git, okay, and once you understand what Git is and why we are learning it, we will switch to the commands used in Git. Branches are created in Git. Then how the Git flow and Git to contribute to the Hop Fest, and then watching the pull request, we'll show you some resources. Okay, this is a very common question that I hear every day. So I just want to ask one question, that is, am I audible properly? Hello?
Yes, Dee, you're audible.
Okay, just hold for a second, I'll just reconnect.
I think she's not able to hear us. So let her join
Okay,
again.
meanwhile, let's share the link to the Hacktoberfest in case someone is not enrolled in it.
Okay, so I've shared the link to the DigitalOcean website where you can register yourself for Hacktoberfest if you haven't already. So any first timers, you can go to this website. Like if you wanted, you can go right now or after the session. Register yourself with your GitHub account, and then make the pull request that will be counted. And how your pull requests will be counted will be covered in this particular session. Right?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
Okay, finally. So am I audible right now?
Yeah.
Properly?
Yes,
Yes. Yeah.
you are audible.
Okay. So, sure. Okay then. So we'll start with it. So Rajashri, please go to the next slide. Okay. So first we'll start with introduction to Git. So what Git is basically, so I'll just read the definition first. Git is an open source distributed version control system. Now, if you listen to it, it sounds very technical. So there are certain terms used to define Git here. So first I'll break it down into simple parts so that you'll be able to understand properly. Okay. So let's start with open source. What is open source? So any software or any particular program or application that we build, okay. So if the source code of that particular software can be made freely available or maybe redistributed or modified according to the requirement of the user, then it is known as open source. Okay. So the basic, most famous example of open source software is Linux itself. Okay. So Git is also an open source software, all right. So the common thing between Linux and Git is they have the same founder or the same developer. Okay, so the one who had developed Linux is same person who has developed Git as well. All right. So Git is an open source software, that is its original source code is freely available and anyone can make modifications which can later be included into the main program. Next is Rajashri, to the next slide. Okay. So the next part of this particular definition is version control system. Okay. So what is version control system and why it is used? So the main part is, let's see, we are making a software. Okay, I'll just explain with an example. So suppose we made a software, or let's say we made a website. Okay. So it is a client-based website. Like we have a client who has asked us to make a website. So we made a version of that website and we gave it to the client. Okay, so the client is very happy with all its features and it's satisfying all the needs of the client. Okay. So now what happens is now we have Dashera Puja coming, right? So now the client wants us to add some certain features like sales on certain products, that kind of a thing. Okay. So we did not have that particular feature earlier in our website. So now what we want is, like the client asks us that you make some changes according to my requirement. Okay. So we have certain options how we can go about it. So what we can do is first, we have our main program, the main code that we had submitted it to the client, the website itself. So we can make certain changes in the website and we can submit it to the client. So now again, the client is very happy that we have given him what he required or what he asked for us. But we know that the sales do not end forever, right? They end at particular time. So once the puja vacations are over, the sales will also get again. So in that case, suppose after a certain time, like after 15 days of sales time, the sale is over. But what is there in the website? It is still showing it as the sale is on. Okay. So now the client will say, okay, now the sale is over, I want it back. Okay, I want my previous version back. That is, I want the sale feature to be removed once again. So now what you can do? You will again go to your code that you had written. You will undo all the changes that you have done, and then you have to redo the changes that were in the original project, okay, original website. So don't you think it's a lot of work, like doing again, undoing it, and then keep on doing it again and again? So what can be a particular way of decreasing that work? Okay. Okay, so let's say we can save the work that we had done. Okay, so let's say we have a version, like we have our original website. We save it in a separate hard disk or in some drive, and then we make the changes and submit the new one. So if the particular client asks for the previous one, we will share the previous one. Okay. So this is for one time. You can do it for once. Okay, you can have a limited space in your local system and you can do it. But what the client asks again and again different changes, and then there will get lots and lots of source code in your system. How will you store it? Or how? And storing is also not an issue here, okay? Because of course we can store in cloud or something of that kind. But how will you keep a track of what changes you made every time? You have to make Word documents for each kind of each version that you made for a project, right? So this is a lot of issue. Okay, so now your job has been divided into two. First one is developing the project. Second one is maintaining all its versions separately and keeping all the history of the version. So as a developer, you would obviously want to focus more on developing the project rather than controlling and managing these systems. This is when version control system comes into play. So what, as the name itself suggests, so it's basically responsible for controlling the versions of the system. Okay. So what it does is it basically tracks the history of changes as people and teams collaborate on projects together. Okay. So most of the time we do not do projects single-handedly. Okay, there are a group of people who work together on a project. So what do? If we keep on sharing it through links or drive links and all, we might not be able to track what the other person is working on. That is also when version control system plays a very important role. What happens is, suppose we have a common platform where whichever changes I make are reflected to all my team members, and whichever changes or whatever changes they make is reflected to me in my system as well. Then it will become a very easy task for us to know which and how much each person has performed, right? So it will help us in collaboration as well. So that is why version control system not only helps us keep a track of the changes that we made or the versions, but also help us collaborate in teams and projects together. Okay. As the project evolves, team can run tests, fix bugs, and contribute new code with the confidence that any version can be recovered at any time. Okay. So developers can review project history to find the answers to the questions like what changes were made. So you do not have to go back and search in your drive for some kind of Word document, what changes are made and everything. All you need to go is to click on that version that you had done and you can see the changes that you had made. So which changes were made, who made the changes, when were the changes made, why were the changes needed, and many more. Okay, so all the details regarding your project can be maintained and you need not do it yourself. The version control system will do it itself already. So now your work has been divided, has been reduced to only developing the project. Okay, you do not have to maintain all the versions separately. Okay, Rajesh, next slide, please. Okay. So next one is distributed version control system. Okay. So the definition of Git was it is an open source distributed version control system. So we understood what open source is. We understood what version control system is. Now let's focus on the topic, what is distributed version control. To understand what is distributed version control, first we need to understand what is central version control. Okay. So this is basically the difference between distributed and central. So let's say, for example, in our house, okay, let's say the electricity that flows in our house. We have a main fuse there. So that is when we have individual switch for every light or every fan that we have in our house. But we have a main switch that controls the entire electricity flow in our house. Okay. So it is it is organized way. So there is one place where all the electricity comes and it is distributed throughout the house. But there are certain drawbacks in it. Okay. What is the drawback? So suppose if your light is having a problem, particular light, then it's well and fine. Okay, it will not work. So the rest of the house will not suffer anything. But what if the fuse blows off? In that case, the entire house will be in dark. So that is the problem with the central version control system. Okay. So what happens in a central version control system is there is a main repository. I'll make you understand what repository is in future slides. So basically you have a main server. For now, let's understand the server. Okay. So you have a main central server where all the codes and all the projects that you are doing is there. Okay. And each person who has submitted a project of code in that version control system central server has a copy for its own for working. Okay. So it doesn't have the entire project's history and entire copy. It just has the copy of the particular part it's working on. So let's assume that you are having a project that you have submitted on the central version control system, your server, and it has that for version was 4.7. Now you want to develop another version 5. So you will just take up 4.7th version, bring it to your PC, and you'll start working on it, then give it back. Okay. So in your PC, what you have in your local system, you will just have version number 5 because that is the one you're working on. So if the system fails by if the server doesn't work, or if like someone hacks the server, so all your project history and that previous year's versions will get lost. Okay. You just have the 5th version of it, so version 5.0, then you will not be able to recover anything. That's why distributed version control system is preferred. Okay. So what distributed version control system is it also has a central server. Okay. But above the central system as well, so central server as well, every particular local system has its, or every particular user has its own local copy of the entire project. Okay. Now, local copy, I do not mean that if I'm working on the 5th version, only the 5th version will be there. The entire project, the history, the changes, the commits, everything that was done previously, will have its own local copy in for every particular individual having an account, okay, or maybe having a project in the server. So the particular data has been distributed, okay. So even if it enters into the central server, and even if at one point of time the central server fails, we do not have to suffer so much. Why? Because even if the server fails, we will have the main project in our local host or local copy, and we will push it into a central server. Okay. So obviously everything will get recovered, so there won't be an issue later. Okay. So Git provides us that facility as well. Okay. So what the distributed VCS allows is it will allow full access to every file, branch, and iteration of a project, and allows every user access to a full and self-contained history of all changes. Okay. So every local copy that we have will include everything related to that project. So we do not have to every time call the central server for our work. Okay. We can go to our local copy and we can refer that as well. Okay. Git doesn't need a constant connection to the central repository. Okay, central repository means, let's assume it's central server. Developers can work anywhere and collaborate asynchronously from any time zone. So if I'm sitting here and someone is sitting in Bangladesh, or someone is sitting in UK or any other country and following any other time zone, we can work simultaneously and asynchronously. Why? Because even if I'm working here at day and after 6 hours they are working on it, they will be able to see the changes I made. Okay. Even if we have local systems, even if we are working on local copies, still we will be able to share our data asynchronously as well. So they will be able to see the changes I made as well. Now, without version control, team members are subject to redundant tasks, slower timelines, multiple copies of single projects, and so on. Okay. So since now I'm sure you must have understood what are the benefits of version control system. So without version control, obviously there are like whatever benefits were there, they will be removed basically. So let's say why do we need Git? Okay, we already have Google Drive, so we will share in our drive and we will share everything there itself, and everyone will know what changes you are making and everything. But that is the issue. In Drive, you can share your code and everything, but the changes you made, how will the person know what changes you made, at what time you made the changes? And if at any point of time, two people are seeing a same drive, right? So both will copy the codes from the drive, both know that our next task is to make these changes, and both are working simultaneously on making the changes. Now there will be such a redundancy in tasks. Two people are working on the same thing, even though, and they do not know whether the other person is working on it or not. So there will be a communication gap as well. So these are the drawbacks if we do not follow version control system. Okay, that is all the human errors that can practically occur. So now I hope you all understand what is the main purpose of using Git. Okay. Okay, Rajeshri, let's go to the next slide. Okay. Okay. So what is Git? I will just summarize once again. Git is an example of distributed version control system commonly used for open source and commercial software development. Okay. Now you will know Git is, okay, obviously Git has a lot of benefits definitely, but is it actually being used in the industry? So let me tell you, one of its biggest users is Microsoft. Okay, so Microsoft, it's like everything that Microsoft works on is through Git on. Okay, so all its projects are on Git, basically, mostly available. Other than that, Google is obviously one of the companies as well which is using Git. So according to the latest statistics, more than 70% of developers use Git. So now you can understand it's so much, like so many people are using it, so many developers all over the world are using it. It definitely has something, okay, making it the most used GCS in the world. Okay, so for your information, Git is not the only version control system, okay, that is available. There are a lot of other version control systems as well. Those were launched, but only Git, because of all its features, all the drawbacks that it is overcoming, it is the most popular one. Okay, it has significant benefits for individuals, teams, and business. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, why use Git? So I basically answered it already. So I'll just read it through and let's see if we missed anything. So Git lets developers see the entire timeline of their changes, decision, and progression of any project in one place. Okay, it's like basically you're having everything is at one place, so you do not have to look and search for a thing. Okay, developers work in every time zone, so there is no time limit that 9 to 5 only you can make changes because this is a timeline followed in this country, this is a timeline followed in that country, and so on. With a distributed version control system like Git, collaboration can happen anytime while maintaining source code integrity. Okay, so even if at any point of time we make certain mistakes, we can always recover. Okay, we can always get our source code back. So it's that way our source code integrity is also maintained. Using branches, developers can safely propose changes to production code. Okay, so this particular point I will explain later. So I'll tell you what branches are, and then you will be able to understand how Git is useful in that case. Businesses using Git can break down communication barriers between teams and keep them focused on doing their best work. Okay. Git makes it possible to align experts across a business to collaborate on major projects. So if you go and search on internet, what are the different major projects people are working on? So you will find a lot of projects where people have opened their code and you can make changes and everything. Okay, you can make pull requests and you can submit your ideas and everything. So it has like everywhere, all around the world, people can contribute to certain projects without any restriction. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Rajeshri, can you move on to the next slide? Okay, how to get started with Git? Okay, that is a very that is common sense. Obviously, to do any work with any application, all we need is first we have to download it into our system. Okay. So first you have to download. So you can download Git for your specific operating system from the link that is provided, obviously. So they are basically main three operating systems are used, that is Linux, Windows, and Mac. So if you are using Mac, Git is by default downloaded in it. So you do not have to do any special download system. If you are using Linux, you will get a package that you might have to download, and for Windows, you'll have to download the Git bash. Okay. So the following link has the details of downloading and installing it in multiple operating systems. Okay, so you can follow this link. So even after the session, we can share it with you so you can follow it. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, this is the main part, Git commands. Okay, so now we understood what all happens, like what all Git is capable of doing. But how do we do it is the answer to this question. Okay, so Git commands. There are a lot of commands that Git follows by which we can make our changes. So first one is git ---- version. It's obviously used to find the Git version that we are using. So the first thing that we do after downloading and installing our Git is we run it in the command line to check our Git version. Okay. By command line, I mean the git bash or the git terminal. Okay. Second one is git init directory. Okay, so listen, for everything that we do now, we have our central server is there somewhere, we do not know, in some world it is there, or some cloud it is there, some other country it is there, but we have a local system, so we have a project ready. Okay, now we want to use Git and put it into the central system, or we wanted to like make the commits and store it into the main server. Basically, use our version control system. Okay. So how we will start with it is the Git init is the first step that we do. Okay. So what it does is create a new Git repository. Now I'll let you know what repository is. Okay. Repository is mainly a folder. Okay. Like in a layman language, you can understand it is a folder. So what you can do is it stores all the things that, or all the changes that you do. So it is a folder, you can assume, or it is a server where everything is stored, kind of a thing. Okay. So it creates a new Git repository. So this repository will be a local one. Okay, it will be on your system only. So you still haven't made any connection with your central server yet. Okay, so we are still in a local system. It can be used. Okay, so it can be used to convert an existing unversioned project to a Git repository or initialize a new empty repository. Okay, so we have already a already a project there. So we will initialize it. So we'll get an empty repository for it. Okay. So next command is git add directory. This add command. Okay, now we created a repository. Next, what we want? Next, what we want is we need to add whatever files or folders was in our project folder. We want to put it into our directory, right? Which is why git add function is used. Okay. So the git add command adds a change in the working directory to the staging area. Okay. What is staging area? It is basically an area which is an interface between the our working directory within a local system and our local copy. Okay. So our local copy is with us all the time, which has all the details and everything. And our working directory is on a local system. So the repository that we created, okay, that is basically you can call is our staging area. Okay, so every changes that we made, we use this git add command, and then the directory name, that is which particular directory do we want to add to our repository. So those are all copied into our repository, okay, like a staging area. So it tells Git that you want to include updates to particular file in the next commit. Okay. Okay, so next one is git config username name. Okay. This command is basically for authentication kind of purpose. Okay, so basically what you'll do is you will configure your global username, and you can also configure your email ID after installing Git. Okay. So once you install Git, you have to let Git know that, okay, you are the owner, right, of that particular folder, that particular Git that you have installed. So basically, this is used to configure it. Okay. Next is git clone. This is a very important command. Of course, all commands are important, but okay, it is at par with git init. Okay. So what you can do is you want to, like, you have a new project and you want to push it into your central server. So you create a new empty repository git init. But what if there is already a project in the server or in your local copy, and you want to bring it to your system first, and then you want to make changes? So that is when git clone is used. Okay. So git clone, then repository. So git clone is primarily used to point to an existing repository. Okay, and make a clone. Clone means copy of that repository in a new directory at another location. Okay, so basically it will, in simple words, what it will do is it will clone or download an existing Git repository to your local computer. Okay. Next one is git commit -m message. Okay, so the main point here is git. Okay, so sorry, commit part. So the commit command is used to save your changes to the local repository. Okay, so what you did is you made all the changes, you initialized the repository, you used the git add command to add it into your staging area. Now next what you have to do is whatever changes you made, of course you have to push it into your local repository, right? Otherwise, how is it even helpful? So the git commit command is used to save the changes to your local repository. Now this is your local repository. Okay, this is not your local copy, so do not get confused. What add function does is it basically stores, okay, or adds it into a staging area, And then the staging area, when we use the commit command, the staging area, whatever we had added, is then saved in the local repository, okay, that we had created using INI, okay. So basically it creates a snapshot of the staged changes, okay. Next is git status command, which is obviously you can understand by the name itself. It is used to check the state in which our working directory and the staging area is. Okay. So what it does is lets you see which changes have been staged, which haven't, and which files aren't being tracked by Git. Okay. Next is git log, because it's a very helpful tool. It allows you to view the information about previous commits that have occurred in a project. Okay. Git pull command. Okay, it is some. Okay, the git pull command is used to fetch and download content from a remote repository and immediately update the local repository to match the content. Okay, so what happens is there are a lot of confusion between clone and pull. Okay, so what happens is git clone is basically when you want to work on a project, you bring it to your local system, you download it, you make your changes, and then you commit that. But if you're actually working on a system project already, okay, now there are certain things that you want to pull from your central system or your server or something, okay, and bring it to your local repository. That is when git pull command is used, okay. So it is just used to fetch or download the content from a remote repository, just a particular content from the remote repository, and immediately update your local repository. So you already have a local repository, and it will update it to match the content, okay, that you pulled. Next is git diff. Okay, so diff command is used in Git to track the difference between what? Difference between the changes you made on a file. Okay, since Git is a version control system, tracking changes are something very vital to definitely Git. Okay, so diff command takes two inputs and reflects the differences between them. It is not necessary that these inputs are files only. Okay, so it can be any difference. The entire project can also be there. Okay, so I hope you understood what basic git commands do. Okay, so Rajesh, let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, so how does GitHub fit in? Okay. Okay, so there is a very big blunder that exists in this world, that is Git and GitHub are same. Okay, so just because they have similar name doesn't mean that they are same. Okay, so what GitHub is, they are very different from each other. Okay, so Git, what we know is it is a distributed version control system. What GitHub is, it is a Git hosting repository that provides developers with tools to ship better code through command line features, issues, pull requests, code review, etc. Okay. So let me lighten you up a little because those were a lot of terms. So basically, GitHub is a co-hosting platform. Okay. So it is like you will just put all your code at one. Okay. Now we were discussing about the central server. You can assume GitHub is that central server. Okay. So it is basically where all our code is hosted. So it's a co-hosting platform for version control collaboration. Okay. So you can assume that it is a company that allows you to host your central repository in a remote server. Okay. So more like a social media network, you can say, okay, like Facebook or something. So whatever posts you make, you push it into that, like you just post it and it goes to the central server, that kind of thing. So it is like a network for developers. Okay. So with collaboration layers like GitHub Flow, a community of 15 million developers and an ecosystem with hundreds of integrations, GitHub changes the way software is built. Okay, so it helps us, like it helps the entire community of developers to collaborate with each other. Okay. So what you can see is Git is something which deals with, or which exists between our local system and our GitHub, that is a central server. Okay. And what GitHub does is it matches all the Git together, brings all the Git together. Okay. So it is not a superset of Git, because Git is a separate thing and GitHub is a separate thing. It is just helping the purpose that Git is trying to serve. Okay. So GitHub builds collaboration directly into the development process. Okay, so it helps us collaborate with it. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So I previously explained you, like we had come to a point where we saw that branches help in production and everything. So now we'll be able to see how it is done. Okay. So what are branches? Branching means you diverge from the main line of development. Okay. And continue to work without messing with that main line. Now let's see, we have a very big project, okay, which is obviously, like let's say Linux itself, it is an operating system, it is open source, so everyone can make changes, right? So what does that mean? That means I will make any change and I will give it and then the Linux will start working in that way or what? Of course not, because what? It is an open source doesn't mean that we can make any changes and directly into the Linux software or Linux OS and kernel and it will come into effect. That is not how it works. That is why branching is done. Okay. So what branching does is, we have our main project somewhere. We take a branch from it. Okay. That means what? We create a copy of that particular project that we have kind of a thing. Okay. It's not exactly a copy, but a branching. That means you will make changes into that one, which will not be reflected into your master branch or the main line as it is given in the definition. So branching means you diverge the main line of development and continue to work without messing with the main line. Creating a new branch allows you to create a new pointer to move around. Okay. So what you'll have is, usually in Git what we follow is we have a particular master branch. What is a master branch? It is a main production line. Okay. So it is the entire version that we see on a GitHub or anything. Whenever we want to make some changes, we basically make branches, okay, and we make changes there, okay. So once some changes are made, then we merge it with the master branch. Why? Because there are a lot of developers working simultaneously. So if one developer is making some changes simultaneously, I'm also making the same time, then we will get confused, right? Now, you would have used Google Docs, okay, or Google Colab, or in collaboration you must have used with someone. You will see that most of the people can type simultaneously. So that time causes a lot of confusion at times, okay. Like I am typing something, so the other person is also typing the same thing. So that will create a mess, okay. That is why branching is. So as you can see in the diagram as well, there is a master branch. You make a branch for yourself that is in blue color, okay. Make your changes there and then you merge it with the green color master branch. And there is someone else who wants to work, that will make another branch. I guess it is yellow color. So it makes its own changes there and then it merges. Okay, so it makes it more smooth, the whole entire process. Okay. So now you understand what branches are and what branches do. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So this is the Git workflow. Okay. So this will help you understand how branching helps and what we actually do. Okay. So we have this sky blue color, that is a master branch. Okay. So the master branch is used for production releases. Okay. So like versions that we call. So you can see in the diagram itself, like the chart. V0 version 0.1, version 0.2, version 1.0, that way. Okay. So the master branch is used for production releases. Whenever we want to make a change as a developer, we make another branch. Okay. So a develop branch is created from the master branch. The develop branch contains the stable features for the next release. Okay. So what the developer branch contains is it basically contains all the stable features for a next release. So after version 0.1, we create a develop branch. All the features that we want to add, we add it, and it becomes stabilized, and then it is merged and it is turned into another version. Okay. So now we see that there is like master branch and develop branch, but there is another dark green color perhaps, which is known as feature branch. Okay. So what is the use of that branch? So next we create as many feature branches as we like. Okay. So we have a project. Okay. We had a master branch. We want to make some development changes. Let's say we have an application. We want to include a login button there and a login form there. Okay. So I think this will help you understand properly. So if we want to have a login page there, so that is a particular part that we want to have. Okay. So what we can have is we can create a develop branch. Okay. So we will have the code for it. Next, what we want to add a feature into it. Okay. So we will create another feature branch for the login page. Okay. And we make add all the features that are needed. Okay. And similarly, if we want to add another feature, let's say sign up. Okay. So sign up form also we want to add, a sign up feature also we want to add. So we make changes there as well. Okay. So we will make two feature branches. One will be for login, one will be for sign up. So next what we do is we integrate when the feature is stable and tested. Okay. So for each feature we will separately test it and see if it's stable or not, and then we will integrate it with the develop branch. Okay. So after that integration is done, the changes in the develop branch must be merged back into the feature branches. Okay. So whatever changes they made in a develop branch, it has to be merged back into a feature branch. So what happens is and then there comes another branch into play, but it has been skipped in this diagram. So I'll just let you know roughly. What happens is once we got a feature stable, we merge it with our develop branch. Now, what is a main branch? A main branch is master branch. So that is when where we want to see the code, because even if as a developer I make any changes at the backend, doesn't really matter if the people cannot see it, right? So that is when develop branch is merged with the master branch. Okay. So it happens through another intermediate branch that is called the release branch. So you can just assume as of now it is not there. But anyway, so the release branch basically is used to isolate and stabilize the version. So the debugging and bug fixing that is done there, and then we finally merge it with the master branch, and we finally obtain our version. Okay, next version. Okay, so that is how Git workflow works. Okay. Now let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So the next part is GitHub workflow. So what is Git workflow? What we saw is that what happens between our local repository, and what we do in a command line kind of thing. Okay. What we do with GitHub workflow is when we deal with the main central repository. Okay. So you can see in the diagram, it will help you understand very easily. So first we have the master branch. Okay. Then we create a develop branch as we had seen. Then we commit our changes. Committing the changes is done obviously in a local repository. Then we make a pull request. Okay. Now I'll let you know what a pull request is. So once we make the changes in the pull request, like the pull request is made, we get a feedback, we test the changes, and it is merged back into the main master branch. Okay. So all the things that occur is through the pull request that we had made. So we make the change commit. Okay. Once we create the branch, we make the changes. Obviously, that is on the developer side. What is pull request is what we will see next. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So what happens after you make a pull request? Okay. So before that, you need to know what is a pull request. So basically, a pull request is the core of collaboration on GitHub. Okay. So everything that we do, the collaboration and everything, it happens through pull request mostly. Okay. When you open a pull request, you are proposing your changes. Okay. And requesting that someone should review it. Okay. And pulling your contribution, merge them into their branch. Okay. So basically, every master branch has a maintainer. Okay. That maintains the master branch. Now you wanted to make some changes. So you made some changes in your repository and you committed it. Okay. Now you want that maintainer to accept that changes and merge it into its main branch. Okay. That is when you propose your solution. Okay. You propose your changes through a pull request. So you send a pull request to the maintainer. The maintainer then goes through the entire changes that you have made. Okay. And basically what pull request does is shows the differences of the content between both the branches, the master branch that was there and the changes you did, okay, in your branch. So changes, additions, subtractions are shown in green and red, that kind of a way it is shown. So as soon as you commit, you can open a pull request, start a discussion, and even before your code is finished. Okay. So once all the changes are made, your maintainer will review it, and if it accepts, like it feels that, okay. Hello? Yes, someone is saying something or what?
I think that was by mistake. We can continue.
Okay, so I should continue. Okay, fine. I'll continue. Yeah. So once the changes have been verified by the maintainer, those are merged into your master branch. Okay. So after you make a pull request, the maintainer of the repository will be able to see and compare the changes you made to the project. Okay. If they find some problem, they can request changes to be made and provide feedback. So that is one of the main benefits of using pull requests. Even the maintainer can tell you just what changes more you need to make, and then again make a pull request. Okay. They will also check whether your pull request has followed all guidelines or not. Okay. So for every project, there are certain limiting guidelines you need to follow. So the maintainer will see usually mentioned in the project. After this is done, your request will be merged into the required branch of the project by the maintainer. The maintainer is responsible for approving your pull request and merging. Okay. A pull request wrongly merged can be reverted back using revert button in GitHub. Now, this is a very good feature that GitHub provides, that even if you made certain changes or a pull request is wrongly merged, you can get back your things. Okay. That is the whole point of using Git and GitHub and everything. Okay. So there's a revert button in GitHub which will help you reverse it back. Okay. Okay, so this I hope you all understood what pull request does in like in a normal form. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Fine. So I think somewhat you must have got the idea how Git and GitHub work. Of course, we will have a hands-on session later on, so that you will actually be able to see how it works, so that all the theoretical knowledge that you got, you can actually put it into action. So here is the steps to contribute to the Hacktoberfest. Okay, so the main purpose of this session. Find the repository you want to make changes to. Okay, so you will be given, like you will be told where to go and search for the repository. So find the repository you want to make changes to. Okay, so it has definitely it has to contain a Hacktoberfest label into it. Definitely that is first. Next step is find an issue you want to work on. What is an issue? Let me tell you. So when you are working on a project, there are certain problems that you might face. Okay, that is when you can raise an issue. So GitHub also provides you a platform where you can raise the issues. Okay, so there will be certain bugs in your code or some issue will be there. So what we have done is we have prepared certain issues ourselves. Okay, in a code. So what you need to do is among all those list of issues, you have to go to the repository. You have to search, see the issues, and you have to choose one among those issues. Okay. So preferably with the label good first issue. Okay. So of course it has been labeled good, that means it has to be good and first is given. So you must obviously try for that also. Next one is third, fork the repo. Okay. Means fork the repository. What does fork mean? Okay. So basically a GitHub fork is a copy of a repository that sits in your account rather than the account from which you fork the data from. So now you will see again a copy. We first saw git clone, then we saw git pull. Now again there is a copy. So do not get confused there. Okay. What fork does it? It is a GitHub. It is related to GitHub. Okay. Everything that we discussed like git clone and everything, we were basically getting the things or copying the things into a local system. Okay. Here what we are doing is there is a GitHub account someone has made. It has some issues in it and it has some code in it. And we have made another GitHub account for us. So what we do by fork is we basically copy that particular entire repository into our account. Okay. So now we have it in our account and we own that copy. Okay. So whatever changes you want to make in that copy, it will not affect that one. And we are free to do it. Okay. There is no restriction that we cannot do it once we have forked it. So basically GitHub fork is to copy the repository into your own account. Once you have forked the repository, you own that forked repository. Okay. This means that you can edit the contents of your forked repository without impacting the parent repository. Okay. So you have to, once you find the issue, you have to definitely fork the repository. Fourth one is clone the repository to your local computer. That obviously is a must because you cannot make changes directly there. Okay, that is not how it is done. So you'll clone into your local computer using git clone. Make changes as required. Commit the changes. Make a pull request. Okay. So six you understand. Now make a pull request. Now I told you how it is done, like what pull request usually does. So how it is actually done in the code, we will see in a hands-on session. What? I guess someone is really concerned about me. Okay, so I'll continue. I'll have water after I complete this section. Thank you for your concern. Okay, so we make a pull request. Alright. So the eighth step is wait for your pull request to get merged with the label Hacktoberfest accepted. Okay. So what will happen is once you make the pull request, the maintainer will review it, then you have to wait. Okay. So your part is up to making the pull request. You will do the changes and you will make the pull request, and then you will wait for definitely this label to come. Okay. Okay. So this is what you actually need to do. Let's move on to the next slide. Rajeshri?
Yeah, they have moved.
Okay.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, okay. So next is a note to remember. Yeah. So a note to remember, okay. So obviously you have to follow all those steps, but there are certain notes that you have to keep in mind. While searching for an issue to solve, you will find that some of them already have assigned. Okay. So basically some have already been assigned the issue. This means that someone has already been assigned to solve the issue mentioned. If that is the case, try finding another issue which does not have any assignees, and you can either ask the maintainer to assign you the task, or you can make a pull request and link it to that particular issue. Okay. So obviously choose the issues which have not already been assigned to anyone else. Otherwise, it will be like same people, so like different people will be working on the same issue and everything. And so what you can do is you can directly go to like you can choose an issue and make a pull request. Okay. Okay, so now I think the theoretical part is over. So we'll move on to the hands-on session. So now finally can have the. Okay, so I'll hand
Thank
over
you,
the
Lee,
session to
for
Rajeshri.
showing a proper path on how to get started with Git and GitHub. Actually, it becomes very difficult on the part of people, those who are unknown to this, to start up. And now it's the time when we will be having a hands-on session. Balgopal is going to show the exact way how you can carry on with the Hacktoberfest, making successful pull requests, followed by Shubham, who is the maintainer of the repo, and will be showing up with the further steps. Over to you, Balgopal.
Thank you, Rajeshri. Okay. So these are the steps to contribute to Hacktoberfest. Am I audible?
Yes, BG. Balgopal, please carry on.
These are the steps to contribute to Hacktoberfest. The first step is find the repository you want to make changes to it. So first we have to find the repository which contains a issue or which contains a bug so that we can refine it. So there are many ways to find the repositories, which I will explain later. At first, we created a demo repository to explain how it works on. So this is the demo repository. You can say this is a simple website. Here, this is a theme switcher application. Here it is written in the switch to light mode, but this is already in the light mode. So when I click to light mode, this is switched to dark mode, but in the button it is converted to switch to dark mode. This is the issue. We can find the issue in here. The issue is the website switches to light mode and we select the dark mode and vice versa. This repo is created by Shubham Panigrahi, who is maintainer of this repo. Anyone can create any issue in any repository. So to go to the next steps, we find the issue which was labeled as a good first issue because it is very easy to solve. Now I will be fork this repository to make a personal repository. I fork the repository, and this is the my personal repository. And now I will clone the repository to my local system. I will use git clone command with the repository URL. It will clone the repository to my local system, where I can edit the changes and commit to my local repository. I use Visual Studio Code to edit the. So we have to fork. So here there are only 4 files. The one is readme.md. It is the GitHub readme file, and here the index.html, app.js, and app.css for styles. So here this is the index.html file. Here I can see that जो वेब डेवलपमेंट के बारे में जानते हैं थोड़ा बहुत, वो जानते हैं कि प्रॉब्लम कहाँ हो सकता है. सो यहाँ पे मैं जानता हूँ इशू कहाँ पे है, इसीलिए मैं बताते पा रहा हूँ. नहीं तो हमें पहले कोड बेस में फाइंड करना पड़ेगा कि कहाँ पे इशू है, मतलब किस लाइन के वजह से प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. तो यहाँ पे हमारा वेबसाइट निकलता है. Okay, this is the live web page. Okay, this is the heading: Hacktoberfest Meetup at VSSUT by Enigma and DSC VSSUT. Here, this is the code for that, and this is the subheading. This is a theme switcher application. Here, this is a theme switcher application subheading, and this is the button: switch to light mode. So this is the button. So here on button click, the function toggle theme will be called. So the function will be defined in the app.js, since it is a programming part. So I will go to the app.js. Here I can see that this is the problem is here. I will find the problem. Where is the problem? So here this is the initial function will run after loading the page. So local storage dot get item means the creator of this repository stores the theme data in the local storage of the browser. So local storage dot get item theme dot dark. जब डार्क थीम होगा तब सेट, जब पहले से डार्क थीम होगा तो सेट थीम क्या होगा, डार्क थीम. जब पहले से लाइट थीम होगा यहाँ पे, तो यहाँ पे थीम लाइट थीम हो जाएगा. तो here the set theme function is called. So in the set theme function, local storage dot set item theme name, the theme passed here, and here that is the problem is document dot get element by id next theme. The text which is shown in the button, this is the id. So document dot get element by id next theme inner HTML equal to theme dot. जब डार्क होगा, मैं यहाँ पे देख रहा हूँ, जब डार्क होगा, जब पहले से डार्क होगा तो यहाँ पे लिखा होगा कि स्विच टू डार्क थीम, पर यहाँ पे लाइट होना चाहिए था, इसलिए इसको चेंज कर दूंगा मैं लाइट को. तो ये हो गया. अभी जब थीम नेम जब पहले से थीम लाइट थीम होगा तो स्विच टू डार्क थीम दिखाएगा, और जब लाइट डार्क थीम होगा स्विच टू dark theme दिखाएगा. So I have to check this change in my localhost. So then I will post to the changes. So now this is my localhost and this is the original. So I close the original and this is the localhost. And now you can see that switch to dark mode is seen now. I click and this is the switch to light mode. So the issue has been solved now. So I will push it to the my repository and I will make a PR. So after editing all the files for resolving the issue, I will run git add to add all the file, all the changes to it, and I will commit my changes with a commit message. Issue resolved. Now it is committed to my personal repository in local. I will push to it my repository by using git push. Since here only one branch is there, that is master branch, I need not to mention any branch name in the push command. If I have 2 or more branches, then I have to mention git push the origin to which I am pushing and with the branch name from which branch I am pushing. So here we can see the successful message that the push has been completed from my local main branch to my local GitHub repository main branch. Now I will go to my local repository and I will refresh it. Here I can see that Balgopal Patra is has a here it is in the यहाँ पे एक दिखा रहा है कि इशू रिजॉल्व होके कमिट आया है जो कि मैं पहले किया था. So the issue has been resolved. So I have to make a pull request. यहाँ पे भी दिखा रहा है this branch is one commit ahead the main repository which is Enigma VSSOT organization के अंदर है. So I will go to the pull request bar and new pull request. While creating a pull request, there may be some conflict. Conflict may arise if when I fork the repository and then after any other person changes that file and I am trying to do the same changes at the same line in the code and I am trying to pushing to the same repository. So there will be a conflict because there will be two types of code at the same line or same file. So here this is there is no conflict, so this is able to merge. This pull request can merge automatically to the main repository on when the maintainer will merge the pull request. Here you can see the changes that I have made, and now I am creating a pull request. Here I can give some heading or something, some issue number that mention. So the issue number is so I mentioned the issue in the pull request command and created a pull request. Now in the Enigma VSSOT demo repo, which is parent repo, you can see the pull request and the maintainer can merge it to the main branch. So now the question is how to find the issue. There are many web pages and apps that will help us to find the issue. Such example is issuehub.io or other. So here I can see you that our issue has labels bug and good fast issue. So bug and good fast issue and language is तो छोड़ो इसमें हम ट्राई कर सकते हैं हमारा लिमिट हो गया है now the maintainer can merge the issue and this PR will be displayed in this profile. Yes. You committed issue result to Enigma VSSUT/demo, and the status is now pending because the repository is not labeled as Hacktoberfest, and the PR is not also labeled as Hacktoberfest accepted. So this is the live example. How can you make a PR? Okay, then the maintainer of this repository, Shubham, can handle this. How to maintain the PR?
Okay, so let me present my screen. Chrome tab, like my demo. Great. So can anybody confirm me if my screen is visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So as you can see, like we are on the same page, and uh, even Balgopal happens to be one of the maintainers of this repository because he is in the organization. But then just because for the this doesn't applies to all the situations. So you don't really create a pull request to your own repository more often, right? You contribute to others' repositories, and these repositories might have different maintainers. So we just wanted to make this a more lifelike, right? So that's why I'm trying to explain why such a procedure is important while making a PR to be counted towards Hacktoberfest. Okay. So one thing to look for in here is this part. Can you see my mouse? Is my pointer visible?
Yes.
Okay. So here you can see every repository which has a tag of Hacktoberfest will be accepting the, like, any PR made to such repositories will be accepted towards the Hacktoberfest PRs, right? The 4 PRs that you have to make for getting the flags and the t-shirt will be accepted only when, like, if the repository you are making on the PR to has this particular tag, or when I go to the issue, this issue has been solved by Balgopal Bhaiya right now, Balgopal. And I can see 2 pull requests, right? One of them is made by Balgopal right now, and one of the other pull requests which is made by some person in Canada. Because I opened the repository yesterday night, and somebody might have searched for the same keywords that we have for the issue, which is bug and the good first issue, and she might have come across the same repository and she solved this issue, right? But she didn't ask if she could work on it. So I'm not going to really see this particular PR right now. Although it is always a good practice that you talk to the maintainers first about if you should work on a particular project beforehand. Okay, before making a PR, just go to the issue and talk to the maintainer that yes, I want to contribute, I want to solve this particular issue. So kindly like assign this particular issue to me. Okay, and the maintainer will like assign this particular issue to you, and then you can work towards solving the issue and make the PR, right? So I can see the PR made by Balgopal right over here. I'll open it. I can see merge pull request over it. This only show to the maintainers of the repository, right? किसी repository के maintainer हो. अगर नहीं हो तो तुम्हें ये चीज नहीं दिखाएगा. Okay, so I can see the issue is resolved, and a particular PR has been made. So what as a maintainer I can do to make this particular PR applicable for the Hacktoberfest is that I can go to the labels and I can make the label as Hacktoberfest accepted, so that it will be updated that I added Hacktoberfest accepted label to this particular PR, right? And after this, what I can do, okay, this phase is really important because of the updated terms and conditions on the Hacktoberfest. So either your repository must have the Hacktoberfest tag, or your PR has to be added with the tag of Hacktoberfest accepted, right? This is really important for your PR to be counted towards the 4 PR that you are making for Hacktoberfest. So right now I saw what Balgopal did was right. So I'll just go on and I'll confirm the merge. And then it'll say that the PR has been merged into main, right? So I can go into the main repository again. I can refresh and I can see that sorry, this is CSS, app.js. So I can see that the changes have been made into the repository. Let me see if these changes have been added to the live website or not. Okay. So can you guys see my
Yes.
screen? So you can see the changes have been made. Like when I'm in the light mode, it's saying that switch to dark mode, and when I'm pressing it, it's switching to the dark mode, and it's saying switch to light mode. But then, if you can understand this, there is one more issue that this particular website has. Although this is a really simple version of the website, this website also has a very prominent issue. Okay, this issue is when we switch to the dark mode, the subtitle here is not visible, right? The theme switcher application, which is visible in the light mode, is not visible in the dark mode. And this is something I would I would encourage you to do, right? I'll be, or Balgopal will be opening an issue after this, which will be aiming towards changing this particular thing, right? That you have to amend in the app, and will make the issue. You can come to Enigma VSSUT repository, named as demo, and you can fork it. You can clone it to your local machine. You can make the necessary changes and make the PR. And all the aid to this particular project will be counted towards your Hacktoberfest 2020, right? So I guess I'm clear about being the maintainer. I'm sure being the maintainer isn't much of an issue. You have learned a lot about making the PRs from Valgopal, and that's all it counted. What you have to look for is when you are contributing or into a repository, the repository must have a tag here labeled as Hacktoberfest, or the PR that you are making must be labeled as Hacktoberfest accepted by the maintainer of that repository for your PR to be counted towards the Hacktoberfest 2020 for getting swags and t-shirts. Okay, and all the kinds of PR, let me tell you, all the kinds of PR that you are making will be counted. Uh, like uh, if these two conditions, if either of these conditions are satisfied, this could be a simple readme amend, but it's a good practice not to make such small changes. You can always tell the maintainer that he has made a spelling mistake in the readme. That doesn't look nice when you are changing, when you are making spelling corrections onto a repository just for the sake of getting the PRs, right? Don't do that. Do some contribution to the PR. The maintainers will also be really happy if they see you are working towards their open source project. They'll be really happy contributing. Okay, I'm done with my presentation. Over to you, Rajshri.
Okay. So first of all, we have known certain facts about Git and GitHub. We have seen the hands-on workshop type, and we are very clear about how to make the pull requests and how the maintainer of the repo can merge it or label it or whatever. So now we are having a poll session. So we are going to ask you certain questions. Basically, we have less number of questions. So Etik is going to present his screen now. And before that, we'll be sending you the link of the poll in the chat box. So please visit the link and start polling.
So we'll be having the dedicated Q&A session after this poll session, right? You can ask us your questions if you have one, if you have any. So
Can you just confirm that my screen is visible?
Visible. I guess everyone has entered the code and must be ready for polling.
Yes.
Okay, then I think you can start. Okay. Have you registered in the Hacktoberfest? You can put your answers there.
okay, and for the people who haven't yet, we'll be sending you the Hacktoberfest website. Let me give you the link right now. Okay, you guys can go on and like register yourself for the event. Okay. Great. So we can go to the next question, I guess. Okay.
How many number of pull requests you have made? Okay, it seems that most of the people have made more than 4 pull requests. Nice. Oh,
Okay. Okay, it's completely okay if you haven't started contributing yet. We'll make sure that at the end of the October, like at the end of the event, uh, we are all at least making one pull request, right? You guys know that at least you have one pull request that will be counted towards Hacktoberfest by the end of this session, right? Just go on to this particular repo or any repo in general. Come to the Enigma VSSUT organization. We have several repositories like taking in entries for Hacktoberfest and which are currently in progress. You can contribute to any one of them and you can get a valid PR.
I guess we have the limit of 70 for 70,000 people who submit 4 successful PRs. So don't be late. After the session, you can just jump on
Right.
and start up with the pull requests. Next questions. I think we are consistent at this. Okay, how clear are you on the concepts of Git and GitHub? Okay, if you are somewhat clear, you can still visit sites and we have provided the links. You can visit there and make your concepts fully clear. Okay, I think that's it. Okay. Thank you, Etik. Now we can move on to the question answer session. You can ask the questions in the chat box itself, and we'll be answering. I mean, Vertika, they will be answering all your questions.
Okay, and previously we had some questions. So let me just shoot them right now. If Let me open the questions. Okay.
Okay, Ajishri, if you can just read the questions which have been asked, so we
Yeah.
can refer to them.
Yeah, yeah. Shubham, can you continue with the question answer session? You can read
Oh yeah,
out
sure, sure,
from the.
sure. Okay, so the first question is from Subrata.
Shubham, you are not audible.
D, what's your saying? Hello, am I
The
audible?
question wasn't audible.
Yeah, Shubham, can you please repeat the question once again?
Okay, the question is Git secure to use? Is Git secure enough to use?
This was asked by
Well,
Subrata.
hello, I'm audible.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that is a very common question, I must say, because usually what we feel is if it is completely open source and if our codes are completely available for everyone to use, then can anyone make changes and can anyone do whatever they want? So I must say that Git is extremely secure because it follows SHAI code of security. So that is a code that is used in cybersecurity. So it basically, you are not allowed to make changes or clone. First of all, when we made our account, okay, Git account. So I told you that you have to do configuration. You have to configure where you can add your username and you can also add your password, which will obviously make it secure on a local system as well. Other than that, people can review your code, they can fork it, but in order to make changes there, to clone your repository, they have to follow up. Like if you open GitHub, you will see there's a section where you have to have a code there. Okay. So if you are allowed for allowed by the maintainer to make changes there, then only can you clone it. Okay, so you cannot go and clone anyone's this thing as it is, like anyone's project as it is. So it makes sure that it is secure enough and it does not allow anyone to make any changes. Even when you make a pull request, you have to make sure that like even the maintainer checks whether your changes can be accepted or not. Okay, so that is the only way you can actually make changes in the project, right? By pull requests and by committing, like pushing those into the main repository. So of course, the maintainer is the main holder of the project. So you cannot make changes as you wish. You definitely have to get it checked by the maintainer. The pull request needs to be accepted by the maintainer, and then only can it be merged. So I hope I was able to answer the question.
yes, completely. Like that sounds reasonable, right? So another question we have is what is the difference between Git and GitHub? I guess Dee has quite extensively explained the differences between Git and GitHub. Like if you still have any confusion, Dee, can you just reiterate over the points which differentiate Git and GitHub?
Sure. Definitely. So that is a very common doubt people have. So basically, imagine something which is local and something which is global kind of a thing. Okay. So it is the easiest analogy I can derive. So basically, what happens is Git is the child and GitHub is the parent kind of a thing. So what Git does is it is a tool which is used for you to make all the changes in and store all the versions. So it is basically a version control system. It will store all the versions, all the history, all the changes, everything of your project. Okay. But what GitHub does is it is a global platform. Okay. It is used for collaboration. So when you open GitHub, anyone's account if you open and see, okay, so like you do not have access to everyone's account, right? So everyone is having a separate account, so you see their particular repository or whatever changes they have made, right? So you open GitHub, where you can make collaborations with each other. Okay, so it is basically used for collaboration. Git is obviously a sub tool which is used for working on the project level. Okay, and GitHub works on a collaboration level. So it's basically some sort of central server kind of a thing. So the main purpose of using GitHub is to assist the features of Git. Okay, it is basically a co-hosting platform that we can say, or Git hosting repository. So it's basically you hosting all the features and all our projects to a particular place. Okay, that is where GitHub comes into play. So it's all about assisting the process or assisting the features that Git provides us. I hope I'm clear. If you're still having a doubt, we can ask once again.
Okay. If anybody else has the same doubt or is not clear between like the differences between Git and GitHub, can post another question on the chat box. We'll be looking through it. Going on to the next question, like Rajarshi Rakshit asks, what to do if a conflict arises after making a PR? Like, would you?
Okay, Shubham, I would like you to refer this question.
Okay.
Take this question.
Okay, sure. So, Rashi, like what we actually do if we like encounter a merge conflict is we try to locate the problems in the both the code bases, right? If you're making a PR to the remote repository like the master branch and you are having some kind of issues, like some kind of conflicts, and when does conflict really arise is when you two have made changes to the same kind of file in different ways, right? If I say x is equals to 10 and if you have said x is equals to 5 and these both problems collide, that's when a like merge conflict arises, right? When a same thing is written in two different ways in two different code bases. So in that, as maintainers is we look through both the code bases, we see the conflicts, like you have seen the command, right? Git difference. It can be helpful. Like a GitHub tool is always helpful in this. Like when you are trying to merge things on GitHub, they'll show you the differences between both the code bases that you are trying to merge into, right? And there you, as a maintainer, you can decide what code base to keep and what code base to discard. Okay, you cannot like you can also keep both the changes, like both the what do you say, both the snippets of code, but it has to be distinct, right? It has to be made distinct by the maintainer or by the like who is making the PR, just so that it is able to merge. You cannot say x is equals to 10 and x is equals to 5 in succession, right? That's where the conflict arises. You have to say either it's 10 or it's 5, right? There's no point of saying in a code base, there's no point of saying x is equals to 10, x is equals to 5 simultaneously. So as a maintainer, it has to be his logical choice what code to keep and what code to discard. So I hope I could like explain it in a way that you could understand. Like if you have any other doubt, you can shoot me in the chat box. Like I'm really okay. It's clear. Well, okay. So that's all the questions we had received from the chat during the session. If anybody else has some questions, you can shoot them up. Like Vatika is there to like answer, and we'll be helping. Like we would love to help you.
And okay,
Anything?
guys, so one point, so please do not feel embarrassed asking the questions in the chat box right now, because like there are a lot of things that we also do not know sometimes, so it's fine, you can ask it clearly. Moreover, even after the session, if you want to reach out to any one of us, you can definitely ask later as well.
Yeah. Okay, so like anybody else who has a question?
I guess Ashutosh Khandwal has asked a question. It's one of the off-topic question. He's asking, generally when applying to an internship, we come around a question, why are you interested in this internship? What did you exactly wrote? And when this question, asked this question in the application form, I think this question is being asked to Vartika Di.
Yeah.
Can you please explain it?
your personal experience.
Okay.
Greedy question.
Okay. Seriously, okay. Listen, the point is, first of all, if you are applying to an internship, you should actually have a reason of applying. Okay. Usually there are two reasons what I believe. First one is either you actually want money, like, or it's like a big company and you want to work for it just because everyone is working. Like if it is Google or any fan company or like Nvidia or something, okay. You would definitely want to join it because everyone is joining and it is number one. It is good for your CV. First reason that thing, okay. Second is you genuinely want to work on the particular topic or particular internship, okay. Now you can obviously, if someone asks you why you want to join a company or why you want to internship, we cannot tell them that yeah, I want my CV to glow, right? You have to just know what they are offering. Okay, so if I am doing an internship for software development engineer, okay, so what a software development engineer does is it is not very domain specific. They work on a lot of different variety of this thing, like a different variety of technologies. Okay, starting from development and then working on back end, front end, and everything. Okay, so if you are and if you want a data scientist internship, so you tell them your interest. Okay, whenever you want to write, you have to write a write-up kind of a thing, or you have to tell them why you want to do an internship. You can just like forget the main reason, that is because it is a big company or because you want money or something. Tell them the rest of the reasons that could be. Okay, why you're applying not for a full stack developer internship but for a data scientist because you're interested in data science, obviously. You can let them know that you are interested in this, what were your previous achievements or what, how you came to know about it, or kind of a thing, like why are you interested in data scientist internship or any kind of thing. Okay, so let that technical part of yours speak up. Okay, because if it is a big company, it will not like be affected by your smooth words and good vocabulary or something. It will actually look into how interested you are, and even if you do not have the talent, let them know how keen you are to get that position. Okay, so you should be someone who should want to learn. Okay, so if that thing can be reflected in your write-up or the reason why you want to enter, it can definitely help. So they do not want experts. Okay, honestly telling you, I have, other than Amazon also, I have appeared some other interviews of good companies, and most of them, they just ask data structure and algorithm. So they do not want to someone who knows everything. They want that you should have the capability of learning. Even if I ask, even if you do not know anything, if I ask you that learn this thing for me, you should be able to. It's not like no, I'm not interested, or no, it's like I will not be able to. That's why I try to know your intelligence and your keen interest into things. Okay, I think that is what you need to show when you write answers to those questions. I was somewhat able to answer that question that Ashutosh asked.
Okay, we have a question from Shashank Bhaiya. How do you think TNP can get more companies like Amazon?
Well, Shashank must know it more than me. So, okay, this
No,
is this
I
is
don't think.
a
I don't think. I don't think TNP is doing a very good job right now.
okay.
What are your opinions, Swartika, on that?
Okay, well, my honest opinion, see, I got Amazon through a different program. Okay, it was not off
Yeah,
campus.
of course, of
Sorry, on
course.
campus. It was off campus. Yeah. So,
True. But we do have an internship program
yeah,
from
yeah.
outside.
Obviously, we do have on campus as well. See, on my like my personal opinion on TNP's performance, I will not give an opinion on that. If you want to ask like how can we improve it, because that will be a little controversial then. So if you want me to like know how can we bring it, bring more companies, see, I believe that just as I told you, first of all, obviously alumni play a very important role. So for even for fan companies, they look for talent when they host certain the contest kind of things. Okay, so I was selected through Amazeballs, that was a contest. So that is very fair. Other than that, it is not
Right.
fair. It is not at all fair. So you cannot expect that you are super intelligent, so you might be even better than an IIT, and then also you won't be able to get it. Okay, if it is not something coming on campus. It's through
Right.
connection. Even if you want to bring, like Google will also come if you have connections. So it's not a big deal at all, but all we need to do is like connections. So be active on LinkedIn and just reach out, like even if you feel embarrassed, keep that thing aside and reach out to as
Yeah,
many
I
people
think
as
I
you
think
can.
LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is very important actually. Right. Right.
Yeah, it's all about making connections, as many connections as possible. Another thing,
True.
One point I would like to mention, last year Credit Suisse has come. Okay, so it has not come on campus. It's
That was
conducted
also through a competition.
yeah, that was also through a competition. But we were not also even given the opportunity to enter the competition. So how did we get an opportunity there? First of all, there was an alumni that we knew in Credit Suisse. So we approached him. So what he told us is that you bring, like, we will give a contest, ask your students to participate. Okay, they will participate. We will see their performance. If they perform up to a certain level, then we will, from next year onwards, we can come on campus or we will take students from your college as well. So that is how companies give us an opportunity. Okay. So, and on a TNP basis, I would ask to have as many connections on a student space, like student level. I would just want you to, like everyone to improve your skills. Keep on improving it because either way, two skills. First is your technical skills, obviously. Another very important skill is communication. Like communicate to any person you know, like that is how you can meet and you can get opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I have to say. That's all.
And
The
who doesn't? Please go on.
Okay. I'm having a question from my side. Actually, many students have the doubt that how communication skill is important, how much it's important for one to get selected in any internship or any placement process.
Okay, so I would like actually I can divide the placement process into like placements or the type of companies into two parts. Okay, first, which actually look for this thing like your communication skills. Second, where communication is secondary. Okay, so I would say like I know some experiences when you like when I interviewed for Amazon. I was giving interview before people who are from India. Okay, so those were Indians whom I was interviewing with. But when you go and interview at Google, Indians do not take your interview. Okay, it's not like they might take, but it is not fixed. So your interview can be at 2 a.m. as well. Your interview can be at 2 p.m. as well. Okay. Now at that point of time, you should have a general like knowledge that you can communicate with them. Like all you need to do is you should be able to deliver your what you want them to understand. Okay, so for companies like these which actually are looking into technical aspects more, they do not much care about okay your English and everything. So if you talk to a foreigner, that person won't even think that you do not know English. Why? Because it is his or her mother tongue, so they won't consider that English is also a category where we can get until and unless he or she is not able to understand whatever you are saying. Okay, so in that cases, obviously you should be able to express yourself. That is more than enough. Being extra good at having buttery language is not necessary in those internships. Okay, and those companies don't even have HR. So yes, what do you have to worry about? Other than that, there are other companies who have a separate section of verbal ability in their written test. They obviously check your the personality. Okay, because what their requirement. If you talk about master recruiters, it's not like master recruiters are bad or they do not work properly or it's like it's a waste because obviously when you are jobless or you do not have any job, master recruiters are your supporting hand. And one who has worked with master recruiter has the experience and who can like actually go on to big companies later because you are able to find time for studying and everything, whatever it is. So these companies, they know that whatever their basic requirement is almost fulfilled by most of the computer science students. So there should be something which can stand you out of the crowd, right? So in that case, your skills and your communication skills are important. That way you should be able, everywhere it's not about vocabulary, I'm telling you. Okay. As per my experience, there might be certain companies who actually would take into consideration that as well. Even for Deloitte, there was a JAM one. So it was like, even in JAM, it's not about English totally, I would say. It is about your presence of mind more than your English, I guess. But anyway, I did not appear, I did not get selected for Deloitte, so I will not give much opinion on that. But it's about basically being able to express. If you are able to express what you feel, that is more than enough. Having too much extra knowledge or like too much extra this thing vocabulary and everything is not necessary a lot. Okay, so that is like what I have to say.
I think we don't have any more questions in the chat box.
Okay. So let me just, we have more questions, but let me like take this opportunity to introduce Shashank Bhaiya. Although he doesn't need any introduction, like he is a CAC final year, our senior, and he currently, he is placed in Deloitte. So welcome, Shashank Bhaiya. Sorry for the late introduction. I really apologize.
I also joined right now. It's not a problem. But yeah, the
So,
session was fine, right? It was good.
yeah,
People got interested for Hacktoberfest.
right.
Okay, cool. You just address the more questions, then I'll
Right. Okay.
two more questions.
Okay. So we have two more questions. One from Cyrus. As a second year student, where should we do software dev internships to build up work experience? You have done tons of internships.
Yeah.
Any tips?
Okay, not tons of internships. Okay, so Cyrus, you want to know about software development internship in particular, or like any software internship, like any particular field, if you can clear. Okay, you can.
Okay.
Okay, software development internship. See, if you ask me the question, even Ashutosh had the same question, I guess. So he was not satisfied with my answer earlier. So I'll just repeat it once again. If you ask me why I want to do a software development internship, first of all, I would say that I will tell my points. Okay, that what I am capable of doing. So I'll tell them that I have worked on a lot of different versions of software. I've worked on what is the requirement of software engineer? You should have just like you should have intelligence. But and you should have basic knowledge of computer science, data structures, operating systems, and everything. So if you have that knowledge and you do not have knowledge of like previous or earlier, you haven't done any internships on other fields as well, it's fine. Okay. So what's software development internship? All you need is you need to have a brain, and that is what they need. Okay, so in software development internship, what you usually do is you work on a different domain. Okay, like every time there will be a different problem statement, so the learning is a lot there. Okay, so you'll get a lot of opportunities to learn different. Like at one time you will be doing a project where you will be addressing uh, like a web application, or you'll be doing web development. Okay, another time you will be in a project where you'll be doing app development. Another time you'll be working on a different software. Other time you'll be working on a data science project, or that kind of a thing. Okay, so these are what you do actually as a software development engineer. So if I'm applying for software development, I would say them that I am interested in doing these kind of roles. Okay. So I'm a very quick learner. I can learn very easily, and that's why I'm interested in these kind of internships where I can learn every day. Every day will be a day one for me. Okay, because every day I'll be learning something new. Another thing, where can we do software development internships? See, I did not do any software development internship in second year, honestly. Okay, like I did domain-specific internships, and what I believe is it's easier to get domain-specific internships in second year than a software development internship. There is I do not know if you know about it or not. There's a STEP competition hosted by Google. That is STEP competition. I think it is basically internship related. So it's SETP. I do not remember the full form. So you can apply for it. Okay. So it will be somewhat related to software development. Even AmazeWow, like Amazon conducted is for software development internship only for students, like for girls only it was there. So it included the second years who were entering the third years as well. Okay. And for us, it was a full-time opportunity. So basically, if you are searching for companies where you can apply, major companies actually offer it, but they do it through a process. Okay, you will rarely get like for software development, your basic knowledge is very important, and a second-year student is not usually expected to know everything that is required for software development internship. Maybe that is how the stereotypic mentality goes. Okay, so you cannot actually change companies' mentality all the time. But if you want, you can aim for higher companies. Like Google has it. Okay, Amazon has it. The major big companies have it. So you have to search it and you can apply for it. Other than that, it's like I personally suggest do not go for a software development internship if it is not in a big company. Okay, do domain specific. Increase your technical skills. Okay, do domain specific, and when you have done already so many internships in different domains, you will automatically have the knowledge. Okay, I'm honestly telling you, I have tried web development, app development. It's not like I know them now because I did not feel interested in them, so I left them. Okay, so it's not like, but I have tried them. Okay, so it's like I have tried a lot of domains, and now I know a little about everything. Okay, and there are certain domains which I'm very interested in. So that is how you can go about it. In software development internship, what a second year you can expect to do? Because if you do not have knowledge about the rest of the things, okay, like the basic computer science knowledge, so you might not be able to help them in their project, right? So if it's not a big company, go for a domain specific internship is what I would suggest. That's it.
Okay, the Ashutosh, I think, have a lot of questions. You feel free to ask her afterwards. So we'll move on to the session, and we're running out of the time. So Sanjay, please address.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, sure. How many
yeah.
second years
So
are here? Like, how many first years? Or are they mostly first years?
Uh,
Mostly
I mean,
first
second
years, I
year
guess.
student. Second year.
Okay. So how many of you like want to join FANG companies? You know what FANG companies, right? You can just write in the chat, yes, no, I don't like FANG, I want to join FANG. Come on, be active in the chat. Yes, yes, yes. You know what FANG? Okay. Yes, 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 yes. Everyone. Great. So you asked like what software internships you want to do. Now, I've been placed in Deloitte, but you know, always in the back of my mind, I like even I want to go for something which is purely coding, right? And being a part of TNP, that what companies look for. Okay, um, when you are going for an internship, you need to see the first thing is that are you interested in the work? Because most people fall in the trap that yeah, I'll get 4 or 5 good internships, it will look good on CV. That trap, okay, it will look good on CV, it will look good on Instagram, sorry, no, not Instagram, LinkedIn, right? The Instagram of work experience, it will look good on LinkedIn. That does not work like that for companies which you are targeting for. I asked FANG, okay, I did not ask the other generic companies. They look for pure and raw talent, because I have known people who are from tier 3 college who did not do a single internship anywhere. But you know what they had? Can anyone guess what they had? A guy got selected in Google from a tier 3 college. He did not have a single internship experience. What did he have? Skills. And something specific. He had something specific. Problem solving skills, closer, good. Yes, Partha got it. He was excellent programming. Excellent. DSA, yes, that's what CP needs. So I would say that whenever you're going for a software engineering profile, like software engineer profile, you know why they don't ask for specific things. Whenever you go through LinkedIn, you see the Microsoft job profile page or Google job profile page. You see that they don't ask for any specific stuff. They don't ask that you have to know Redux, React, you have to know Node.js. They don't say that. They just say you should be a graduate. You should have this much percent, and that's it. Have you wondered why? Because they have actually proprietary software that they themselves work on. Okay, and they will teach you anyway. Whichever company you join, no matter how boss level you are, no matter how much you have killed it 4 years, okay, they will teach you again. But what a person needs is a problem solving skill, right? And that guy who I'm talking about, he was I think he was candidate master on Codeforces, you know about Codeforces, and he was a 6-star on CodeChef. Okay, Google came. Google emailed him. In fact, he reached out to a recruiter. Google emailed him, and then there were 7 rounds of interview, and he was selected because every question Google threw at him, he was able to solve. Right, and it's not only about Google; it's about any fan company, Facebook, Apple, because when it comes to Apple also, when I say Google has proprietary software, I mean to some extent, because the software that Google uses, the languages for Facebook, they use React. For Google, they work on Kubernetes platform. But Apple, the software Apple uses are completely 100% proprietary. So there is no way you can anyway learn those software, right? But yeah, of course, some kind of experience also helps. For example, if you have web dev experience, it always helps, because in an interview process, you have to drive the interview, right? And if you only have problem solving skills, what will you do in HR interview? You have to be able to say something that I have done this projects, so that they can know that yeah, you can handle code bases properly. And this is the perfect segue why I joined today's session. It's a very good initiative, teaching Git and GitHub, because when it comes to code bases, there is nothing better than GitHub. Because if you write that you are an open source contributor on your CV, that has a huge advantage. Okay, because it directly means that you can understand code bases. Okay, because the entire workflow of GitHub is like, you have to download someone else's code base. You have to go through the entire thing. Like Shubham, which code base did you show?
Yeah.
Which code bases did you show for your demos?
Why only HTML, CSS?
It was a normal HTML and CSS page.
Right.
CSS page.
Also the Enigma one.
नो सर, कल एक मतलब अलग सा बनाया था बस.
Okay. Anyway, you saw the code base, right? Everyone in this meeting, you saw the code base, how it was. Now imagine that multiplied over 50 times, okay? Because all the big